Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Welcome to day 4 of working on my larch forest. Today I'm going to be doing a lot of creative landscape work. Yesterday I finished cleaning all the lichen off the trunks and the branches of the trees. I started cleaning up my dry stream area here, weeding it, getting all the moss and liverwort cleaned out. I started removing all the needles off the surface of the moss yesterday, but I ran out of light, so I'm going to continue doing that this morning. I don't think it'll take too long. I've just got a few more needles to go. I'm using my tweezers to get all the remaining needles off the surface of the moss. I find the more needles you remove and the more you clean these forests up, the more it looks like a miniature forest, and you start getting drawn into the world. You start imagining you being in there. It's a cool feeling. I call it being in the bonsai zone. I'm around the back of the planting and I'm clearing all the needles away. I notice that I've got a lot of moss overhanging the lip of the pot, so I'm going to come in and just prune that back. I always like to be able to see the lip of the pot all the way around the planting. You can see the moss is getting quite thick and heavy in some of these areas. And you don't have to worry about pruning this moss back too far, because in spring conditions are just right for moss to grow here, and it just grows in like crazy. So, you know, even if you stripped all the moss off this planting, it would all grow back in springtime. So you can see how I'm clearing away the lip of the pot so you can see it all the way around. It's like the frame of your painting. Just keeping this back wall kind of tapered so all this moss gets light. It's getting pretty thick back here. I'm just using my curved scissors. They work really well for cleaning up moss and pruning it. I just have all these needles to remove around the back of the planting, and then we can get to the landscaping work. Very exciting. I've got the forest floor cleaned up of all the needles that have fallen down. At least I got most of them anyway. So next, I'm going to evaluate the entire forest planting. So I'm going to step back and take a look, and then start addressing some areas that need correction. I'm taking an overall look at the forest now. I'm checking the profile of the canopies, to see where I'm at, where I need to go. I've got one tree back here, this one, that's maybe a little short. It could be a little taller. That's one thing. And I think the main tree could definitely be pruned down. And I'm wondering if I could go right back to that one branch on the right-hand side. It would really change the look of that main tree, but it might be the best solution. I'm covering it up with my hand. It looks pretty good like that. Oh dear. I think I've got to do it. So here's what I was thinking. Before, I had only kind of played around with taking that top off, and then I still had quite a thick section in here. Now I'm thinking of reducing it right back, taking it off to there, keeping this branch as my new leader. And it sweeps off to the one side quite a bit, which, might not be the worst in the world. I've got other ones. I'll show you another apex. Here's another tree that I had the same problem with. And you can see the apex here. So I pruned it off here. And, I had a branch going off to the right-hand side. And then I kind of grew a branch out the right-hand side. And it doesn't look so windswept. It looks a little more stable. And these curves, they kind of, smooth out over time, so it generally gives a more upright appearance. So I could do the same thing up here. Yeah, so up here I have, this is the branch I was thinking of as my apex. You know, it's not perfect, but it's something. I could get rid of all this bulgy section. It would reduce the height down to a good level for this tree. And I can grow this up as the apex and eventually maybe get it to blend in more. I've got, you know, 1, 2, 3 kind of branches in that area. So that's a possibility. I'm going to take a final look at it and then decide if I want to do that. I've decided I do want to do that. I think, first of all, this tree's a little tall. Cutting it down to here, it still has quite a thick section in here. I think cutting it right back will solve a lot of my problems, and then I can develop this as the leader in the future. It may set the forest back a little bit for a while, but I think that's a good long-term solution, is remove the entire top of the tree. It's pretty scary too. I mean, it's a big cut. So here we go. All right, I've got the ratcheting pruners. I think it's a good tool for the job. So I've got a branch back here that I want to keep alive, I believe. Should I angle it up for there? No. The trouble is, this branch here, it's above this one. If I angle, you know, my cut, it'll take that one off. Now, is that a problem? I don't think so. It's a nice branch, but okay, here I go. Big cut coming up. I got my angle right. I'd say about here. Here I go. Clickety click. Oh, it's off. Wow. Look at that, eh? Okay, that's gone. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm going to clean that cut up, trying to make it look a little more natural if I can. Like it got hit by lightning or something. And it won't start looking completely natural until it starts healing over. All these edges will roll over. So I've got to hollow this wound out a bit so it kind of rolls over and looks good. I might need my smaller ones for that. That way I can kind of hollow it a bit. What a big change. It needed to be done though. Hopefully someday I'll look back and go, yeah, that was the right decision. Okay, that's looking pretty good now. I'll show you it from another angle. So there's a look at the cut. I've hollowed it out a bit, so when this rolls over, it should look fairly natural. Now, I haven't stepped back and had a look at the forest from the front yet. I hope I did the right thing. Let's go have a look at it from the front view. Well, here it is. It actually looks quite nice. It's better than I expected, actually. I think it, you know, in a few years, I think the top will look quite nice. It's not as horrific as I thought it might look. In fact, you know, from the front view, it doesn't even look that bad. I mean, you can tell it's maybe had a chop there in the past, but like the other branches, like these other apexes, I think over time it'll kind of blend in and correct itself. I did notice that on this tree over here, that it kind of has a very thick branch at the apex. I've got to get that off. It's just too much vigor up top there. I'll show you that. Right here on this apex. So it's got a nice apex here, and then there's a really thick branch coming off here. Now, if, I could prune the apex off and that could take over as the leader, you might leave it on, but this is a fine looking apex, so I'm going to take that thick branch off. It just doesn't fit in to the fine branching near the top of the tree. All right, here I go. So you can see how thick it is at the base, and it just doesn't fit in with the apex. So off it goes, like that. Nice cut. Yeah, that really slims that apex down. It looks much better. I'm thinking maybe if we look at this tree too, I've got my leader coming up here, and I've got a very thick branch back here. I have another branch coming off here, which is kind of coming from the same spot. So I think I better take this thicker one off. I think it's just getting too heavy. It'll start thickening my apex up way too much. So I'm going to remove this one also. So here I go. Just like that. That lightens that apex up quite a bit. Those were really tough decisions to make, but I think it did turn out much better in the end. I'm glad I made those choices to prune that apex off and that one branch off. I think it's improved the forest. So now I can begin the landscaping. I'm having a look at the landscape now. I do like, this area here that has no moss. It's kind of like the floodplain of this little stream. I like that a lot. It's kind of like sea level, and everything else is higher than that. I think this little stream, as I said before, that I think it comes too close to this tree here. I would like to make it kind of wind up between these other trees. So instead of a pathway going between the trees, I'll have like a canyon with a waterfall, sort of like a gorge maybe. I think that'll look good. So that means some major revamping of the landscape, which is okay. I think, overall it doesn't look bad. I think it's not too bad. I think maybe some of these rocks out front here look a little random at the moment. They need some organizing. They look like, rocks placed here and there rather than part of a cliff face. I think it's just these 3 rocks out front need some organization. So yeah, I think, basically the landscape, I like it. I like the way it comes up to an apex here, kind of a shallow hill. It kind of mirrors the canopy up above. It's interesting. So I think just some refinement. So I'm going to work on that little stream as the first element to be improved. A lot of the times with these landscapes, you try an idea out, kind of a dry riverbed. You study it for a while, maybe a month or two, and then you think, it kind of works, but it could be improved. So you think of, you look at it and you say, well, it's too close to that tree. So then you got to move it over a bit. And maybe when I move it over a bit, I'll say, oh, it looks too central now. So it's just an always evolving landscape. Always trying to improve it, make it look, better and more interesting, more realistic. And slowly over the years, you'll get something that looks really nice. It just takes time and development. Just don't expect to get it, the perfect landscape right away. My first step in moving the stream over is to clear all the area out, and I'll get all these stones out. I'll try and keep them in order so I know what I had before. There's a stone there. You can see my bonsai soil in there. This part is fine. I like this area. There's a rock in here. This rock's almost completely covered with moss. So then I want it to come over, which means I will have to move this moss clump here. So it's just a matter of peeling it all off. Because moss doesn't have roots like a tree that goes into the soil. It just kind of clings to the top of the soil. Now you can get tree roots growing up into the moss, which can kind of lock it in place, but generally. So there it is. There's my moss bush removed. I'll put that aside. So you can see there are a lot of roots here from the trees that have grown up into the moss bushes, and that's what holds them in place really well. So that is going to be kind of my apex of my stream. It's going to wind around here, so I've got to take some of this moss off too, like that. This piece, this will all get, you know, replanted and rearranged. Okay, so now I've got a lot of roots in here, so I've got to comb that section out. I've got this section combed out nicely now. There's a few roots sticking up that I need to remove. This will give me a good base to build my dry stream bed on, or my little waterfall section or ravine. And I think all is looking pretty good here. Now I got to step back and decide how I want this stream to look. I'm looking at the forest from the front now, and I'm just kind of following that waterfall section. I think I need to take a bit of that moss off around that corner so you can see it kind of snaking up the hill. Otherwise it kind of disappears behind that moss. Yeah, so I think there's a rock here. I think that's got to come out. And then there's a big clump of moss here that needs to be removed, modified. I see another rock in here. I can take that out. And there's a rock here that was pretty well covered in moss. I'm going to take it out for now. I can always add it back in, but I think, you know, I want to be able to see what's going on here. So now you can see it can come up. I can have it dropping over here, my waterfall, and then steps going up. I think that'll look quite nice. So I'll just remove a bit of moss here. So this will be like a little mountain stream. In spring, you know, all that runoff has to go somewhere, and there's all these little streams that are created. Now, I'm going to look again from the front and decide what I want to do up here. I'll have my mountain stream kind of go up through here, and I got to decide at the top it's got to go kind of disappear. So it'll have to go around behind this tree and just kind of disappear, sort of like a path would. So yeah, that's my plan. So I might have to build up this back area just a bit to kind of get a bit more height there, and then have it kind of turn the corner and go kind of disappear in the background. I think that's a good plan. I think that'll work quite well. My next step, I'll have to try out various rocks, you know, kind of waterfall rocks, to see what looks good. And that'll take a while. It won't be an easy task. You know, maybe something like that, but roughing it in, I guess, is the word. I think I need more of a stream between them. Otherwise they just look like rocky steps. So I'm just still trying out different rocks in here. See, I've got my little stream coming through here. I kind of like that. It's tough picking the perfect rocks. If there is such a thing as perfect rocks. You just got to keep trying things, flipping rocks over, until you find a side you kind of like. Oh dear, this is going to be very tough. I'm stealing rocks from other spots of the planting.
I could go there. The stream could kind of wind around. My stream's got to disappear behind the rocks there. I do like this rock here, and I like this one here. There's kind of a little opening. I've got a bit of a waterfall here. And I sort of like the rock here, but I'm not sure if I do. I don't want it, I think it's got to come out more. The stream's got a kind of bit more winding movement to it. And a stream would just take the straightest path if it could. So you've got to kind of justify this movement by having rocks. So it kind of winds its way through the rocky face here. Yeah, I'm not liking that so much. I may have to get some rocks from outside in the snow. Try and find some more smaller rocks. I'll do that. I'll see if I can get some from the snow pile. So under here is all my rocks. And they're quite frozen. Might have to get a shovel. All right, I've got the shovel. I put this cover over the rocks to protect them from, if they get a lot of water soaked into them and then it freezes, they could crack the rocks. So I was just trying to keep them dry for the winter. Okay, let's see if I can get the cover up. There they are, just like I left them. All right, so I need sort of flat, squarish rocks if I can find them. That may be tough. And very small ones too. Well, I'll get all the small ones I can gather, bring them in. Got a lot of small ones here. I think that'll do. I think I've got enough. I'll bring these into the greenhouse and get them warmed up. Cover back. Put some snow on top to weigh it down so it doesn't blow away in the wind. That'll do. Here's a look at all the rocks I got from outside. Some really nice ones, really nice. I collected a lot of small rocks because I knew I'd be making bonsai landscapes with them. And when you make a landscape, you need a lot of small rocks. If you use really large rocks, the landscapes get heavy really quickly. I'm going to let those rocks that I got from outside to warm up a bit before I start trying them out in the landscape. I'm also going to go inside and study mountain streams on the internet and get some ideas and inspiration for my larch forest here. I made some big decisions today on the pruning of the trees, taking that big thick top off. That was a big step forward for the larch forest, and I think it looks quite nice. That's going to be all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.